Sahajaste, natural in me, affirms natural in you. We came from nature, living in nature. We are going to go back to the nature, but somewhere in between we are separated from nature. So system of naturality makes us aware and gives the steps how to reclaim, regain our original nature. And this journey we started with social intelligence or a healthy identity to find our place in the world, to find a home in a culture, to stabilize ourselves, to get self-esteem, which gives us a sense of healthy sense, self-worth, self-value, that tells us that our life has some meaning. Because without that meaning, we will be in despair, in depression. And it may reach a point when we can even commit suicide. So a healthy identity with a healthy self-esteem is the essential beginning, except for rare few who can bypass that stage. From social intelligence and healthy identity, we entered into our natural personality, personal intelligence. In healthy identity, the light which we were carrying was borrowed. In personality and personal intelligence, now we have a glimpse of our own light, our own lamp. A small but very significant. So a door opened. As we were following this light, then we confronted darkness. That is where hero's journey began. Because this unknown darkness was frightening. But that was also call of our life. Because that is truly we were following the light of our own being. But very few dare enter into the darkness, that existential intelligence which brings us face to face of whatever we accumulated in a lifetime. Shadow, as Carl Jung called. Our emotional wounds and scars, our guilt and fear, our anger and violence. And most don't dare. They come back and they live on substitute satisfactions. Following this and that guru, reading this and that scriptures, rituals, philosophies, practicing. That is substitute satisfaction, because that is the part of our mind. It is not spiritual yet. It is a spiritualization, substitute for the original spirituality. But few who dare, they enter into the darkness, clean everything, extreme catharsis, detoxification, and they come out at the other end, and they are released into their natural integrative intelligence. And at that point, all practices are dropped. All gurus as authority are dropped. All authorities are gone, about which J. Krishnamurti talked so passionately. That doesn't mean we are disrespectful to them, but they are no more governor of our life. Our inner guru is born, inner teacher is born. We become first time emotional psychological adult. We become our own parents, mother and father figure. Then we don't seek any more psychological security and safety in institution, in people, in systems, in leaders. We stand tall in this universe, and when we look in the night to the galaxy, to the stars, we are at ease. We passed finally university. We graduated from the University of Life. And somebody defined this University of Life that by going through it, we find our place in the universe. Universe, university. Meanwhile, a very regular and ordinary university confuses us even more. We accumulate knowledge. We become scholars, PhDs, MDs, FRCP, and all kinds of things. But do you think after acquiring that knowledge, our confusion becomes less? Is there any order, rhythm in life? No. That knowledge is necessary to function in the world, to help ourselves. But truly the graduation from university comes when we find our place in the universe. We are comfortable. We are secure. We are not seeking psychological safety. All ills of our world are because we are seeking emotional safety. And in order to acquire that safety, we accumulate, we possess, we snatch, we grab. That gives rise to conflict and violence. And that fear comes to a complete end at the integrative intelligence. At this point, I would like to say something about the practices. No matter how beautiful practice is, it cannot take us to integrative intelligence or beyond, about which I am going to talk today. What is the importance of practice, spiritual practice? In naturality, there are three elements of a complete spiritual practice. The first component is with the body, because we have mind and body. So complete practice actually deals with each of the components of mind and body. So first comes the body. For body we know yoga, yoga, tai chi, and so many other practices we can take. So first component is yoga, and what is the function of yoga is to detoxify the body, to relax the body, to make it function in harmonious way. I won't go into detail of science of yoga, how it functions, but just to tell you, it takes care of the body, its system, it calms down. Second part of the practice is pranayama or breathing. What is the function of breathing? Breathing deals with our emotions, because pranayama means regulation, expansion of energy, and emotions contain tremendous energy. That is why emotions, they have such power. From where that power comes? That comes from prana, because everything is made up of prana or energy. So if I am practicing pranayama, the breathing exercise, I am regulating my emotions. And that is how a lot of actors they do. They are the master of breathing, and by changing their breathing, they can change their emotions and express that during a film shoot. So the yoga and other movements, the breathing or pranayama. And third component of the practice is meditation, which deals with thoughts, thinking. So, three elements: yoga, breathing, meditation. And it has to be in that sequence, because we want our body to calm down, emotions to calm down, and finally thoughts also have to be calmed down. And this practice, three elements have great benefit, but they cannot take us to our spiritual goal. Whatever is our spiritual goal is, or insights are, they are in between the practice. They are not in the practice itself. So if I am focusing on yoga, on pranayama or meditation, I will miss something which is behind and beyond it. Because once my body and mind calm down, in that calmness, the lake of my mind become quiet. So I can see in depth. And what I see in depth is my own being, my integrative intelligence. So unless I focus on that, unless I latch my attention to that which is between the practice, in that gap, I won't go anywhere. But as I said, the practice will give great benefit to us. There is no doubt about it. But we miss something. That is why so many of us, they keep on practicing forever and reaching nowhere. And once my attention is latched to that, then I am in my natural self, integrative intelligence. And now, after social intelligence, personal intelligence, existential intelligence, and integrative intelligence, an expansion comes. Now there is a snowballing effect. Now things are moving spontaneously. And two things happen at this state. Gradually, the individual boundaries, they expand. And in that expansion comes the experience of universal or cosmic intelligence. I am no more an individual. I am no more an integrated mind and body. I am the universe. I am the cosmos. I am the world. And to this state, many call God. In Indian tradition, it is called Sagun Brahm. Brahm means expansion. Expansion of awareness, because word Brahm comes from Brahi. Expansion, Vrahat. Sagun means with qualities. Because there is a Nirgun Brahm also. So this expansion of awareness has qualities, features. And whenever there is a feature or quality, that is always limited also. So although I expanded, I became this universe, but even this universe, this God, this Sagun Brahm, has boundaries. Boundaries of what? Time and space. Because these are the two mental boundaries. They limit our freedom. It is not unlimited freedom. It is not boundless. It is not timeless. It is not spaceless yet. But it is cosmic and universal. It is Akashic record. It is a storehouse of everything which is possible. Krishna called it Virat. Virat means expansive, cosmic. Because in this cosmic Sagun Brahm contained everything, time and space, all the gods and goddesses, all the myths, the world, reincarnation and rebirth. It is the wish fulfilling tree. If you tune into it, our wish will be fulfilled. So when we pray for something, we want to tune into it. But most of our prayers and wishes remain unanswered because what we pray for or wish for is against our natural personality. If I really want to get something out of my prayer from this cosmic treasure, this wish fulfilling tree, it has to be according to my personality, personal intelligence. Because in order to fulfill my wishes, I have to be persistent with energy. And that can only come when I demand from it which is according to my nature. So if my nature is to become a teacher, but I wish for to become a billionaire businessman. It's not going to materialize. Even if I become a businessman, it will be small, full of conflict, because it won't be according to my rhythms. So that is what I say, ambitions are beautiful if they emerge from our nature. Then we will reach to the very top, then we will achieve excellence. But what we do, we try to imitate other, we are trying to copy each other. That is why we don't succeed. People who really succeed because they found the rhythm of their nature, and it will take them, it's flowing. They are not flowing against the river of their life. They are flowing along with it. So this universal intelligence, this cosmic intelligence, it contains everything which we can ever imagine. All our creativity, all experiences of plants, animals, human beings. Also, it contains all what is good, all what is evil. It's a very important point, because sometimes we think that this universal intelligence, which we call God, is all about love, is all about mercy, it is all about blessings and benedictions. It's not true. Because it is still the world of duality. Still two poles are there. One pole is of good, other pole is about darkness and evil. All negative and positive are contained in it. That is why when Krishna shows Arjun the Virat, Arjun is frightened. He can understand the positive, the beautiful, the harmonious, the order, but also simultaneously there is a disorder, there is a chaos, there is a violence, there is a destruction, there is a death. But human mind projects this idea of God. Of course, there is no God. It is just a name given to some experience. So what we project is only positive side. But when our life is in trouble, when we are facing the darkness, we wonder where our prayers disappeared. We meditated, we donated, we did so many rituals. We were good people. Why bad things happen to good people? Because all bad things are a test. We were tested at a lower level at existential intelligence. Higher we go, test will become bigger. Higher we go, there will be more obstacles. And this is so beautifully described by great Shri Aurobindo. That is why a lot of people feel so discouraged that they come back and again involved with ordinary world. So this God, this universal intelligence, this cosmic intelligence, this Sagun Brahm is a balance of negative and positive, and again we have to go through it. But there is a beauty here. We are not going to suffer. We will have sorrow. We won't suffer. I would like to differentiate. Sorrow is inevitable. No matter what I become, even the greatest sage will have sorrow. What is the meaning of sorrow? there will be illness, there will be a tragedy, there will be a loss of our nears and dears. Unknown event will happen which will give us pain, turmoil. That is what is called sorrow. What is suffering? When this sorrow continues, when this sorrow alters our life. Sorrow is inevitable, suffering is a choice. And the moment we were released into integrative intelligence, the prior stage, suffering is over. That is why Ramakrishna Paramhans suffered from the cancer of the throat. So was Raman Maharshi from osteosarcoma. And J. Krishnamurti from cancer of pancreas. Sorrow was there. They had loss, they had tragedy, but if you really look into their lives, they didn't suffer. So in this cosmic intelligence, we are going to face the whole cosmic sorrow, cosmic despair. It will affect us, we will feel it, but it will be gone. It won't change us. It won't throw us out of our path. We will continue on our life's trajectory. Because that is the law of dharma. Dharma is nothing else but inherent laws of this cosmos. We cannot bypass them. We have to go through them, but we need not to suffer. So this cosmic intelligence, this God, everything is there. It's a cauldron of all possible experiences, so rich. To enter into it is to have the richness of the whole universe. Limitless creativity, limitless blessings. And every single night we experience it in our dreams. But because we are not aware, we miss it. So the night time is like a pilgrimage. In this pilgrimage, we start from the waking state. We go to this cosmic intelligence, universal intelligence, and go to what I call peak intelligence moments. So after social intelligence, personal intelligence, existential intelligence, integrative intelligence, and cosmic intelligence or universal intelligence, now in this stage we are experiencing peak intelligence, in which this duality, these two poles, which are limited by time and space, are finally broken, are shattered. And in those moments, what we experience is non-dual. The boundaries of time and space are transcendent. And that is what we experience each night in deep sleep, but we don't remember because we are not aware. Those are the inklings of the peak intelligence, which is the goal of naturality. But at this stage, these are only moments. And moments mean sometime they may stay for a day, two, sometimes even a month. But it is not state yet. State means when they become the part of our daily living, part of our nature. That is why many of these gurus and teachers, they reach the cosmic intelligence and they experienced peak intelligence moments, non-dual, but they are not stabilized. And if they are not stabilized in that state, there is a possibility, if they are not vigilant, they will be tempted. They may fall from those heights. They may be corrupted. They may exploit others, because still the peak intelligence moments are not a state. You cannot corrupt a Shri Aurobindo, you cannot corrupt a Ramakrishna Paramhans, you cannot corrupt Adi Shankaracharya, you cannot corrupt a Ramana Maharishi, you cannot corrupt a Buddha, because they are stabilized in that state. Below that state, because it is a world of experience, not beyond experience, there is a possibility. Of course, they have so much, such richness, but still if they are not vigilant, as they are getting power through people, adoration through people, as they are building empire, they may be sucked by it. Vigilance, awareness is the key. So again, in this journey, social intelligence, healthy identity, personal intelligence, personality, existential intelligence, face the darkness, gain the other way into integrative intelligence, and from there expand it. And that in that expansion, experiencing something which is beyond time and space altogether. The non-dual, the peak intelligence moment. And now what is going to happen? All the experiences of the peak, the cosmic intelligence are going to be emptied out. And what will be left? A pure consciousness, non-dual, absolute, unconditioned, beyond everything, unknowable. We took our journey from the known to the unknown, and now unknowable. But that for tomorrow, the peak of everything, the peak where human beings are fully fulfilled. They arrive. Sahajasti.